Have you ever felt like you're trying to navigate a world that just seems, well, really divided, full of challenges, and maybe wondered, how do I find my place in all this, my own strength? Well, today we're doing a bit of a unique deep dive. We're pulling together wisdom from quite a mix of sources. Think ancient philosophers, modern thinkers.
Yeah, and the idea is to see what they can tell us about, human connection, what real strength looks like, and maybe this sort of subtle art of making change happen gently.
Exactly. Our mission really is to pull out those key nuggets, the insights that show how genuine positive change can happen, both inside ourselves and, in how we deal with others. Hopefully giving you a fresh way to look at well-being and, well, influence.
Right. It's about understanding how transformation works, maybe not through confrontation, but something deeper.
So let's start with this foundational idea, this concept of universal unity. Basically the belief that we're all connected, not just people to people, but to like all living things.
Uh-huh. And Leo Tolstoy, the writer, he didn't just see this as some nice philosophy. For him, it was real, practical.
He said we're spiritually connected on all sides, not only with people, but with all living creatures. It's quite an image, isn't it? Like this invisible web connecting everything.
It is. And what's really interesting is how Arthur Schopenhauer kind of builds on that. He talked about two main ways we tend to see the world.
Okay.
Well, one state is where we feel, divided, distanced, and alienated. And he thought that naturally leads to feeling down, jealous, indifferent, even hateful.
Right. That sounds familiar sometimes.
Yeah. But then there's the other way, this understanding of universal unification, where everyone feels close, equal. And Schopenhauer argued that feeling naturally brings out compassion, love even.
So he's saying we kind of choose which lens we look through. That's a big responsibility.
It really is. It suggests our feelings aren't just reactions, they're partly a result of the perspective we adopt. We have some agency there.
And this idea, this unity theme, you see it pop up again and again, like Giuseppe Mazzini. He believed everyone has the same origin, is bound by the same law, created for the same purpose.
Which for him meant we should be working together towards that shared purpose.
Exactly. And that echoes Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor, telling us to always try to find those things which do not separate us, but which unite us. He literally said fighting each other is like working against nature.
So just thinking about that,
Mhm.
if you, the listener, consciously tried to shift your focus from seeing the divisions to actively looking for the connections, even in small moments.
Yeah, what difference could that make in your day? It's something to chew on.
Definitely.
Okay, so moving from uni, let's get into this paradox of true strength, because it feels
Yeah.
counterintuitive, right?
Totally. We usually think strong means dominant, looking out for number one, being tough.
Right. But these sources, they suggest something else, that real strength actually comes from, well, helping others and finding inner peace.
There's that observation, isn't there? That the strongest people make time to help others, even if they are struggling with their own problems. It's not weakness, it's resilience.
Yeah. And it forces you to rethink success. Ralph Waldo Emerson, he put it so well. Success is to know even one life has breathed easier because you have lived. This is to have succeeded.
Right. It completely shifts the goalposts away from just getting stuff towards making an impact. It suggests achievement isn't solitary, it shows up in other people's well-being. Kind of flies in the face of every man for himself.
And John Bunyan has this fascinating line, "He that is down needs fear no fall." It's not about being literally on the floor.
No, it's more like when you let go of the ego. Stop trying to protect this perfect image. Stop defending against every little slight.
Yeah, you find this different kind of invulnerability. It's freedom from the fear of falling. It must free up so much mental energy.
Exactly. And that ties straight into this idea. A peaceful mind is a strong mind. It's not about being passive. It's about being effective. Well, think about it. When you're calm, centered, your rational brain, the prefrontal cortex, it's online. Logic, creativity, problem solving, that's all working well.
Okay.
But when you're agitated, stressed, your reactive brain, the amygdala, often takes over. Judgment gets cloudy. So cultivating peace,
Yeah.
deep breaths, remembering we're connected, focusing on helping someone, gratitude, empathy,
Even when it's hard with people who challenge you.
especially then. These aren't just nice things to do. There are direct ways to build mental clarity, resilience. That is the strengths we're talking about.
And Earl Nightingale gives us something really practical, a daily challenge. Treat everyone whom you encounter as the most important person in the world.
Wow. Think about putting that into practice.
I know, it's not about saying they are literally the most important, but about choosing to give them your full attention, your respect. In that moment, it's a way to live that unity idea.
And it changes the whole dynamic of the interaction for both people.
Yeah. So, for you listening, what could change? In your own feeling of power, your well-being, if you leaned into service more, if you committed to cultivating that calm mind, not as weakness, but as strength.
It's a really powerful question to ask yourself.
Okay, now this next part is fascinating. It's what I think of as the real art of gentle transformation. It's about working with human nature, not trying to bash against it.
Influencing change subtly, not by force.
Exactly. And there's this great story about a Zen master, Hakuin, and this really miserly pawnbroker.
Okay, I think I know this one.
Right. The pawnbroker's son was worried. His dad was just obsessed with money, used it as an excuse to avoid any kind of spiritual stuff, praying, chanting, anything.
The classic conflict. Most people would probably try to lecture him, right? Tell him money isn't everything.
Yeah, I confront him directly.
Yeah.
But Hakuin, he knew better. He understood that would just make the guy dig his heels in. So he came up with this, well, clever plan. He told the son, "Tell your father I will pay him for every prayer, every chant he does each day."
Well, framing it as a business deal. Genius.
Totally. Appealed right to the pawnbroker's main motivation, make money and keep his son happy. So off he goes, chanting, counting meticulously, collecting his pay from Hakuin every day.
But then,
on day 7, he doesn't show up. Why? Because he got so lost in the chanting itself, he completely forgot to count.
he got absorbed.
Exactly. A few days later, he goes to Hakuin and admits it. Says he felt this inner peace he'd never known, got totally immersed, and didn't need the money anymore. And get this, he ended up becoming this incredibly generous donor to the temple, completely transformed.
That story is such a perfect illustration, and it connects so well to what Robert Greene talks about in Daily Laws.
Oh, so?
Greene points out that when people are rigid, resistant to change, it often comes from this deep fear of uncertainty. They need to feel like they're in control.
Right, that makes sense.
And he says, if you fight their resistance directly, you just make it stronger. You give them something solid to push against.
So you actually reinforce the behavior you want to change.
Precisely. Greene calls it a kind of reverse psychology. Sometimes, if you sort of agree with their rebellion or find a way to work with their existing motivation like Hakuin did,
They end up moving in the direction you hoped for anyway. It's like finding the key instead of trying to kick the door down.
exactly. Find the key, don't break the door. It's a much smarter way to approach things.
It really is sophisticated. So thinking about times you've hit a wall, met resistance at work, or maybe in personal stuff, could this gentle transformation idea, finding that key, offer a different path, where maybe arguing just creates more heat than light?
It's a great thing to reflect on, which leads us nicely into the next point, the importance of action over just words.
Ah, yes. Walking the talk.
Right. All these teachings that keep coming back to this idea that real wisdom, real change shows up in what you do, not just what you say or intend or think about.
Like that proverb, don't be wise in words, be wise in deeds. It fits the pawnbroker story perfectly, doesn't it?
Absolutely. He didn't talk about being spiritual. He did the chanting, even for the wrong reason initially. But the action, the doing, is what changed him.
Yeah, the practice itself had the power.
And Carlos Castaneda puts it really bluntly, maybe even a bit starkly. He said, either we make ourselves miserable or we make ourselves strong. The amount of work is the same.
Wow. Okay, untack that a little.
Well, his point is our minds are always working, right? Always using energy to create our inner state, our view of reality. So if we're spending that energy anyway, why direct it towards making ourselves miserable?
When the same effort could build strength instead, it puts the choice squarely back on us. Radical agency.
It is. And you see this idea echoed, maybe more gently, in John Wooden, the coach. His advice, call yourself a teacher.
Implying you don't wait until you're perfect. You step into the role through action.
Exactly. You embody it by doing it. And in the act of teaching, or whatever it is, you learn, you grow, you become it.
That makes sense. Do first, become later.
And then there's Timber Hawkeye's definition of unconditional kindness. It really pushes this idea of action beyond ego. He says, give without expecting anything in return, not even a thank you. That is unconditional kindness. Everything else is ego.
Oof, that's a high bar. No expectation at all.
It pushes past just being generous. It's about a truly selfless act. Which circles right back to that idea of unity, doesn't it?
Yeah.
When you give purely without wanting anything back, it's just a clean expression of connection. No self-interest muddying the waters.
So for you listening, maybe think about it. Is there an area where you're maybe wise in words, but could benefit from being more wise in deeds? Where could you start putting these ideas into actual practice?
Yeah, where can action make the difference? So as we wrap up this deep dive, let's just quickly recap those core takeaways we've touched on.
Good idea.
First, that a deep sense that we're all connected. Understanding that means helping others really does help everyone, including you.
Right. Second, that kindness is strength. Real power comes from service, from inner peace, not dominance.
Third, that art of working with people, not just against them. That gentle transformation, understanding their nature.
Fourth, actions speak louder than words. Deeds over discussion. Practice matters.
And finally, that powerful choice you have. Your attitude. Strength or misery. The effort, Castañeda says, is the same.
You know, putting all those together, it really does point to this kind of, well, gentle revolution, maybe.
I like that.
A transformation that happens not with force, not with shouting, but with skill. With understanding human nature, patiently cultivating wisdom. It's like Cocoon's approach, but applied everywhere. Working with reality, not just railing against it.
Exactly. So maybe here's a final thought to leave you with. What if you really committed to this? Consistently choosing unity, acting with strength through service, gently working with resistance. Not just in big moments, but in all the small, everyday interactions.
Well, what would the cumulative effect be?
Right. Could that create a kind of quiet revolution? Not just in your life, but rippling outwards. The amount of work might be the same, as Castañeda suggests, but the results, well, as these sources show us, the results could be profoundly, wonderfully different.